The Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce, another exciting Facebook Live evening. We'll be here for the next 60 minutes. A great few guests we have. First, my co-host, Dave Scalomero, a longtime friend and actually a fraternity brother of mine. He's the CPA for the Chamber. Your first time on live with us.
Yes,
right?
sir. I'm proud to be here.
Gary Byler is out of town, taking care of some other things. As always, we appreciate all our chamber members. There's so many in this outpouring since we started just in January. A heck of a time to start a chamber, but under the leadership of Gary C. Byler, attorney here in Virginia Beach, and I'm the humble director of the event, of the organization. We've been making great strides. We even went out today with Dave and a videographer, lighting guy, Steve, and we made commercials, which is going to be a new added benefit for our chamber members. So those that join, we're going to be doing 2-minute videos. We did one for Dr. David Packard out in Chesapeake, and we did one for Dave.
Me. Thank you very much. You did a great job directing.
Superstar. Now, all of a sudden, we're trying to make everybody look like Robert Redford, which our first guest. So those of you that are interested in joining, we encourage you. We're a educational-minded organization that believes in free enterprise, Jeffersonian principles that our first guest will talk about here in just 1 minute. Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce, coastalvirginiachamberofcommerce.com. And of course, you can contact any of us there because I welcome the opportunity to come out, talk to you about our organization because we need new members and we want solid American patriots like so many of you that are watching tonight. Our first guest is somebody I've known for close to 30 years, back when he was one of our best governors in 1993, the great George Allen, governor and senator here for the Commonwealth. Governor, Senator, welcome, and good to see you.
Well, it's great to be with you, JP and David, and all of your Coastal Virginia Chamber members who might be on. So congratulations as you launch the Coastal Virginia Chamber. And I think what you're saying is very true. You know, our country aspires to be a meritocracy. And JP, you and I got to be good friends because we love sports. We also like good policy. But
sure.
I think the reason people like sports, and it's the way I grew up on the teams that I played on and the teams my father coached, all those players were from different states, some from Tennessee, some from Texas, some from Pennsylvania. They're from all over, different races, different religions, different ethnicities. None of that mattered. And that's, you're on a level playing field. And what we should aspire to in our society is that we're a meritocracy, like in sports, where everyone, regardless of their background, their gender, their orientation, have an equal opportunity to compete and succeed on a level playing field. And so that's something that I've always cared about, is trying to make Virginia and our country more competitive for more investment and jobs, which is obviously one of the mission statements of Coastal Virginia's Chamber of Commerce.
Well, you've always said, George, Governor, the country does not guarantee equal results, but equal opportunities.
Right.
Because there were sometimes I was a starting quarterback, a receiver, a player, and there was other times I was on a second, third squad, but the coach gave each of us the ample opportunity.
Equal opportunities, not equal outcomes.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't watch a race where everyone's holding hands at the finish line. Somebody wins. There's a scoreboard. You don't guess what the score is of a basketball game. You know, someone wins or loses. That's one of the things you learn from sports. You get knocked down, you get back up. You don't brood over your mistakes. You learn from them and try to work to improve. And that's what we should aspire to in our state and our country.
We're going to go, Governor, we're going to get too far down the road because I got some other questions asked about the Redskins and college football and what have you. But you have been appointed or selected this Coronavirus Recovery Commission that the Heritage Foundation put together. And we certainly want to talk to you about that. But I mean, the first question would be Vice President Pence is in charge of the White House Coronavirus Task Force. So could you please differentiate those and then tell us what your commission's about?
Yeah, we actually work with the vice president. He's spoken to our commission, as have leaders from the National Association of Manufacturers, pharmaceutical manufacturers, Secretary of Labor Scalia, and others. And so what we've put, it's 17 commissioners from all over the country, from, J.C. Watts from Oklahoma, and Bill Frist, and people of diverse backgrounds and races, and small business owners, Noe Landini, who's got Landini Brothers up in Alexandria. And so we put together the best ideas for the states, for the members of Congress, for the executive branch in Washington, including the president, on how to handle this. And our goal is to make sure we're protecting lives and livelihoods. And we've come up with well over 200 recommendations. Some of them, for example, a lot of people are grousing about the extent of powers of the governor of Virginia. One of our recommendations is that state legislators ought to review and possibly revise the statutory grants of emergency powers to governors in light of some of these responses to COVID-19. North Carolina, across the line, their governor doesn't have the same powers as is accorded to the governor of Virginia. The other things that are needed is we need to stockpile more supplies of personal protective equipment and tests, so this pandemic's not over, but it's going to recur again, whether it's this one or another one. And we need to be better prepared and have those stockpiles of equipment to protect the frontline workers more available right off the bat. And that's important. Now, as we recover, the other thing is a lot of businesses, small, medium, and large, are worried about liability. And the state legislators and Congress ought to pass some liability protection for businesses who make a good faith effort to follow guidelines, so they're not getting hit with lawsuits. And then I think the most important, I think unifying recommendation of all is that we have figured out or found out that we are so dependent and vulnerable, dangerously so, to medicines, pharmaceutical agents, and this protective equipment from, let's say, adverse sources, China in particular.
Right.
Heck, you wouldn't want to feed your dog food.
Antibiotics, I guess 90%
We're
of
ingesting
antibiotics.
pharmaceuticals from China. And so several of our recommendations are to make sure that the United States is a much more attractive and competitive place to manufacture, to make these pharmaceuticals, the pharmaceutical agents and medicines and the equipment. That's good for American jobs. It's good for our national health security. And never again should we be in a situation where we are so literally vulnerable to a country that, if you don't want to call them adverse, they're certainly unreliable. And at
the same time, Governor, wait 1 second again. Those of you that are just joining us, we have former Governor and Senator George Allen on, a good friend of your chamber, Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce. Dave Scalamero here with me. And we're going to continue talking to him about the Coronavirus Recovery Commission. You talked about China, and I agree. We wouldn't want to feed our dogs dog food from there. There's been policy that some legislators in Washington had brought up to ban us importing any pharmaceutical products, or somehow putting tariffs or something. You know more about that, being a senator, than I do.
Yeah, I don't think putting tariffs on us. Look, a tariff's a tax. And at this point, we aren't self-sufficient. You've heard me, JP, for many years talk about American energy independence.
Right.
And thanks to the innovation of hydraulic fracking and horizontal and directional drilling, and the blessings of our plentiful energy resources, we are number one in the world when it comes to energy resources. Now, there's regulations that some are putting on that would want to keep it in the ground. But that's important for our competitiveness. It's important for our national security. The same applies to health security, but to take an analogy to that is that before we had our energy independence and all the natural gas that we have, and oil, and obviously coal, which is used somewhat primarily for steel making these days, but the point is
You still say coal?
we did have to import oil, whether it's from Canada or Saudi Arabia or other countries, until we had that independence. Now we're exporting oil and natural gas, and obviously from our ports in Virginia, exporting coal as well around the world. So I think at this point, it's not a good idea to say that we're not going to import. The reason, one problem though with China is they don't have the same regulations. I don't have great confidence that they have the efficacy that in the pharmaceutical agents that may be adulterated, it may be counterfeit, it may be diluted. And so we're in a situation right now that, some states are having to import PPE from China. Since we didn't have it. Now, a lot of companies, a lot of manufacturers have repurposed what they're doing. And, you have these auto manufacturers not building Tahoes, but they're building ventilators. And other companies are making masks and gowns and gloves and so forth. But at this point, I think it would, as much as I want to have things made in the USA, the way to do it is not by having tariffs and inflicting really a harm on us, but rather let's move as quickly as possible to make sure we have the right tax policies, the right regulatory policies, the right incentives to get these pharmaceutical manufacturing plants here in the United States. There's a good gentleman, Frank Gupton, who lives in Virginia Beach, who has a company called Flow, FHLOW, that uses continuous chemical manufacturing approach. And it's a much more efficient, less wasteful way of making pharmaceutical agents. In fact, it's been proven great in that his Medicines for All use this manufacturing process to produce antiviral agents to be used in Africa. And they needed it in Africa to stop HIV/AIDS, and it saved literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives. And so that sort of process, and he works with VCU and the Biotech Research Park in Richmond. So there are ideas, and we just need to make sure we make sure that the research, the development, the manufacturing is done here in the United States of America. And at one time, Puerto Rico was the place. They had special tax privileges, so to speak, as part of the United States as a territory, and those were taken off. And so all that pharmaceutical work that was being done in Puerto Rico went offshore, went to China, went to India, went elsewhere. Point is, let's get it back here in the United States of America. And I guarantee you that can be a really great rallying issue or reform for Republicans, Democrats, liberal, conservative, whatever. People want to make sure that we have our medicines here and stockpile them so that it's
and more than just pharmaceuticals, right? Other industries we need to bring back the production.
Well, yeah. But by the way, David, you being a CPA, some of the things that have been done recently has made our country much more competitive. The federal tax laws for corporation taxation, we're the worst in the world, highest, nearly 40%. Now we're better than average. You combine that with the regulatory reforms and the production of natural gas, we have so many manufacturers of chemicals, plastics, fertilizers, glass, and metals coming to the United States because their biggest cost is feedstock, natural gas. And so we have an abundant, reliable, and a very affordable supply of natural gas. And so there's literally tens and tens of billions of dollars being invested by companies that are US-based, international ones as well, in the United States because of our great supply of natural gas, which is their biggest cost of production.
I have to jump in again with Governor George Allen, Senator George Allen, longtime friend of mine in the chambers with Dave Scalamero here. We have roughly 10 minutes left. I want to get back to the Coronavirus Recovery Commission that he is on, and we're going to put that on our website so that you can look at it. It's 114 pages. I reviewed a good chunk of it. There's 5 phases. I want you to, we're in phase 3, but because of the recent uptick, Governor, in several states, Florida, Texas, Arizona, that some of the states are going back to phase 1, and we're not even looking at phase 4 yet. And the nursing home recommendation you guys made. Obviously, we know that's where the vast majority of the deaths happened, if I'm not mistaken.
That's where Governor DeSantis was so successful.
Excuse me again, David?
That's where Governor DeSantis was so successful in immediately moving people, isolating the vulnerable people in the nursing homes.
You're right, David. And JP, you take Virginia, for example. I don't know what the latest numbers were, but it's around 60% of the deaths in Virginia were in long-term care facilities, nursing home, assisted living. And I think that the states that have led, I think like Tennessee and Texas and Florida and Georgia, Oklahoma and others, they opened up more quickly than Virginia, which was very, very halting in Virginia. For example, I don't understand in Virginia why the governor said you can't have amplified music on the beach. I don't think a radio transmits the disease with it. And I have a lot of friends in Southwest Virginia and Bristol, that's where I started off professionally, where Bristol, Tennessee, across the state line, the double yellow line across the street, they see stores and shops and restaurants open and they're shut down. And I have friends on both sides. And one friend from Tennessee said, well, the businesses and folks here in Tennessee really appreciate the governor of Virginia. The Virginians are going across the line. So, I think every governor tried to do the best they could, but they need to look at the facts. And the facts are that all those projections were wrong and exaggerated. Our hospitals have not been overrun in Virginia. Now you got
that was the purpose of the lockdown, wasn't it?
Right. And I think social distancing is here to stay for a long, long time. And washing your hands and sanitation and disinfecting of businesses and so forth. But the idea that, and we've learned a lot in the last several months from this, and what we need to do is protect the most vulnerable. The most vulnerable are those over age 70, those who have underlying conditions, that may be lung problems, emphysema, diabetes, those in nursing homes. Those are the folks that need to be protected. Those under the age of 20, there's no one who's died in Virginia under age 20, and I think maybe 3 who are in their 20s. Now, the shutting down of, say, bars that they've done in Texas and other states, bars just by the nature of bars, you're not going there to be distant from people. You're talking louder, the music's blaring, and folks are congregating. So there's a logic in that one, and places where they cannot provide that sort of space or distancing. In those kind of places, it is important that I don't see how they're going to be able to handle the distancing aspects. But the entire society and our entire economy should not be shut down. The idea, the arrogance of saying some businesses are essential and some are non-essential. Heck, they were shutting down hospitals and medical facilities. They're furloughed people in
dentist offices.
Dentist offices and others. And who's not getting tested for cancer or various treatments because of that? And so there was, I think, an overreaction, too much of a shutdown and lockdown, and free people naturally want to be uncaged, and the same with businesses. So the criteria should be, can you come up, can you deliver that service or sell your products in a way that people can be distant from one another? And if you can meet that criteria, fine. I think bars are going to have a very difficult time meeting that criteria. And that's where you're seeing a resurgence, is that younger people who go to bars, they don't necessarily die. They may get mildly or somewhat sick, but they're not dying. But they could be passing it on to people who are vulnerable. Mm-hmm. But notice that Florida and Texas and Arizona are not shutting everything down. They're doing it in a smart, data-driven, logical way.
And a couple of counties at a time, not the whole state. Dade County and I guess Broward counties, maybe even Palm Beach, but not the whole state.
Exactly. And that was one of our recommendations, is you ought to do this on a county by county basis. Manhattan is not the same, and Manhattan or New York City is not the same as Sioux City, and it's not the same as Oklahoma City, and even in Virginia, again, the western part of the state hardly had any cases whatsoever, and our governor said, "Well, I don't want to be picking winners or losers," so he made the whole state losers. Right. And then he finally opened up, and then Richmond and the commissars in Northern Virginia wanted to stay locked down even longer. And it's just so difficult. One of the business guys who talked to us, small business owners, in one of our hearings with our Coronavirus Recovery Commission said, "I've never worked harder for so little." Just trying to figure out how to comply. And it's this is a government decreed recession. Our goal is to make sure going forward that the response of locking down our economy is never again the decree and reaction of government. There needs to be a way, and there are ways of making sure we have the supplies, the medicines, the protection, and especially protect those who are clearly most vulnerable, but let everyone else work more safely and get back to work. But there's going to be changes. You're going to see this with your Coastal Virginia Chamber. I think distance learning is going to be here to some extent, but I think in business, teleworking is going to be more of the, it won't be so odd. I think it's going to be more prevalent. And I think people are still going to want to keep their distances. And I think businesses are going to have to make sure they're clear, clean, and disinfected, just because you got half the population that's very, very risk adverse and paranoid about this disease. There's people who say until a vaccine is developed, they don't want to go out.
Some of the schools that have shut down. I think Harvard just announced that they're shutting down until 2021. But we only have a couple minutes or so.
By the way, this is the beauty of our country, is that every state's different, and people will learn from, say, Purdue. Purdue's not shutting down. They have great leadership there. And so someone may want to be like those people in Harvard. Others will want to learn from Purdue and others who are opening up. And Harvard's got so much money in an endowment, it probably doesn't matter to them.
Right. Liberty University. Hasn't Liberty University been open for months?
Yeah. And they said this is going to be a disaster, and it was not a disaster. Right. So it got absolutely no coverage in the media.
Do you think, Governor, most schools are going to open accordingly, and it looks like we're going to play football, because obviously we can't play football if the schools aren't open. So I guess Harvard's not going to have a team with the California schools. But what do you think? We got college ball?
I don't know. I'm more confident that high school football will be here. College football with California, say Southern Cal with their mayor of Los Angeles, it may be hard for UCLA and Southern Cal to play. Harvard and the Ivy League, they don't make the revenue from football that other schools do for paying for their athletics, which is not as big a deal in the Ivy League. So they're not a model for much of anything, as far as I'm concerned. But I think college, they have to open the colleges if they're going to have football. The hypocrisy would just be too obvious if they have, the football teams are playing, but everyone's taking online courses from home. And I also think the students and the parents aren't going to be wanting to pay high tuition to take classes online. So
I don't see how that's going to be fair. Doing classes online and they're still being asked to pay $45,000 a year in tuitions. That makes absolutely no sense.
I agree with you, JP.
Well, we have 1 minute left. By the way, a lot of people don't know, here in the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce with Governor George Allen, in the minute we have left. Welcome to Virginia Beach. You've been here since Christmas, roughly, first of the year.
Yeah, we really like it. We've made our fare Fexit or Novexit, and the taxes are about 15% less. Gasoline's 10 to 20 cents a gallon less. Automobile insurance for us is over $500 a year less. Health insurance, the difference was $1,800 to $1,100 a month. And it's the cost of living is less. Yeah,
we're the safest city of our size in the country.
Yep. There's more freedom-loving people, and you got a beach, and we're really, really happy to be living the life in Virginia.
Welcome to Virginia Beach.
We're glad you're here.
You know
Governor,
what? The thing, David, welcome to Virginia Beach. Even when we're getting our water and sewer hookup, you know, with municipal folks in Virginia Beach, even the bureaucrats would say, welcome to Virginia Beach. It's just a very friendly place, and I appreciate it. We're still fighting with the commissars in Fairfax till yesterday with some of those people. So we're
Governor
really
George Allen, we're going to have you back.
Okay.
You're always welcome here, and it's always good to see you back here in town again. I can't wait to bump into you in the store or the bar.
No, we'll throw elbows.
We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for being with us. Governor
Adios,
George
great to
Allen.
be with you. Bye.
You're the best. Governor George Allen with us right here. I forgot to mention, Dave, we have Heather Adolphi coming up here any moment. In fact, she's just coming on.
Okay.
And Gordon Morse, he writes the column every Sunday in the Virginia-Pilot.
Okay, I've read it. I read it.
Every Sunday, he's great. He had some recent articles, one in particular I can't wait to talk about. But Heather Adolphi joins us right now. She's the Old Goat Milk Body and Bath. Been around, I guess, 8 years. There's that pretty lady. And so
Hi.
so glad that you're with us. I tried to research your company as best as I could. I know you've been around 8 years, and you're right here in Virginia Beach, making a variety of products, but the hand sanitizer thing that you're doing with our military is really a cool and neat, innovative thing. So welcome to the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce Facebook Live event, and we're glad you're with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Tell me all about it.
Yeah, so, you know, Oh My is all about a grassroots effort between myself and Vicki Brusso. It was started back in 2012, where I had just moved to the Pungo area, bought a bar of her goat milk soap, had never tried it before, and I fell in love with it instantly. So I am the type of person that if I find something I like, I love to tell all my friends and family and everyone about it. So I researched, you know, I went back to Vicki, got more information, and realized that she had formulated the soap recipe over the course of 10 years. So it's really a super fine handmade soap. And so we started with that. We did a lot of research, and in 2013, we decided to go national, and we hired a national sales manager, and he instantly brought in over 50 sales reps for us nationally. So we just started going into mom and pop stores, and then it ventured into distributors, national distributors, and even Cracker Barrel now. So it's well over 3,000 accounts and 2 national distributors. So how the hand sanitizer came about, obviously it's not goat milk related, but it is all in the realm of our skincare and our health, and that's ultra important to us at Oh My. So
how'd you get hooked up with the military? That connection, we're so military based here in coastal Virginia. That was pretty exciting.
Yes, sir. Well, we have an awesome sales rep, Kathy Roberts. She deals with military, and we've been working with her for several years, trying to get you know, we started off with lip balms and some soaps, but really, you know, a group of our sales reps did ask for us to create the hand sanitizer since we had the mass capability. And we could create it so quickly because we're still a smaller company. So we had the sourcing capabilities, and it was all just right timing. And we obviously worked day and night while, you know, everything was starting with COVID to source all these items, because you know, a lot of our sources had either dried up or it was a several-month wait. So we needed something quickly to help our sales reps to to try to keep their sales going into the stores until the stores did close pretty much all the way around the US. But by that time, we were able to get into in front of the buyer at Nextcom, and they swooped it up for, you know, worldwide. And now one of our West Coast distributors has picked it up as well. So it's a wonderful feeling to be able to help so many people in such a time of need. And that's what Oh My is all about. And hopefully, I think people will see that and feel that whenever they pick up our product.
Heather Adolphi, excuse me, David. Heather Adolphi joins us right here on the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce. We're glad that you're with us as well. Dave, what were you going to ask?
Well, I was just curious how many employees you have here in Virginia Beach, approximately.
Approximately about 15. A lot of them are part-time, college students, high school students. But there's our core team, and nothing would happen without all of us. Definitely, each member of our team, you know, it brings a special touch to Oh My, and it's wonderful to be able to do this with them.
All your business obviously shifted to online sales are the vast majority of it. But now that a lot of stores have opened back up, are you seeing a shift back to the brick and mortar stores?
Yeah, definitely. Those are starting to open back up. We did tend to focus a little bit more on the retail over the last couple months. But definitely the smaller mom and pop up to distributor and chains, that's really our core customer. And, you know, we love getting the product out there into people's hands. And so we felt from the beginning that it had to be a national product and, you know, hopefully become a national brand, which it's well on its way.
Supposed to get the scale of production.
Yes,
What
sir.
is that in the background now that we see? There's a big graphic there that's a big round circle with Oh My on it. Is that being imposed on the screen, or do you actually have a big disc behind you and looks like your shop or something?
Yeah, this is exactly what you see when you enter our shop. This is our logo here, and behind me is our display wall of all of our product.
How many products do you have?
Oh, well, gosh, we have well over 150 now with all the different fragrances. SKUs go way beyond that because we offer, you know, bundles, cartons, and all of that to the distributors. But hey, we still have plenty of room to grow. We have tons of ideas in the works, and I think the sky is the limit on this.
You make the products out there in Pungo. I remember my grandmother made our own soap. I mean, that she made out of lard, I think, or something.
Were you especially dirty?
I don't know, but my grandmother, I remember when I was a little baby, and there were big blocks of soap, like squares, and that was the soap that my mom used. But how do you make the products?
Well, every morning and every evening, Vicki is out there on our goat farm milking the goats. So we transport that fresh milk into our Virginia Beach headquarters, where it's manufactured at our Sonic Drive headquarters. And so, you know, we have drums of or barrels of oils and, you know, butters by the pound, and we keep a pretty good source of inventory. So, you know, we got to be able to accommodate to the mom and pop stores all the way up to distributor and chains at any given time. So scale wise, we're right there with it. You know, we have the plans to go even further. So
Are you profitable? Are you profitable?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. I'm excited. We just started shooting commercials today but one of the benefits of being a member of the chamber is we come out to your facility and we film
A little introductory, a little
2 minutes.
introduction of who you are and what you do and why you're special.
That would be really interesting to come out there. I like to get a picture of the goats,
Terrific.
have a little drink of goat milk with my coffee, and that would be perfect.
Yes, the goats would love you.
I got to tell you, I love the name. Oh my! My mother, when I was, she touched me on the waist and she go, "Oh my!"
Yes.
We got a minute to wrap this up. Give out a website. Give out any information when your store's open. When people can come out and say hello to you. Will they see you in the store?
I'm not going to be in the store at any time. Unfortunately, our facility is can only be manufacturing. We can't retail there. So if anybody would like to purchase, go to www.ohmybathandbody.com. We currently have a Christmas in July sale going on, so
Ho, ho, ho.
50% off.
I'm going to get something. What a delightful Heather Adolphi. Oh my. The full name is Oh My.
The trademark and brand is Oh My. That's it.
Oh my!
Oh my! But we got to get the goat milk bath and body in there to really give people the full idea of what it is until it gets to be more well known.
And that gives it a nice pungo feel to it too. Right
Exactly.
there. You have to get George Allen out there. Did you see him when he was on right before you came on?
Unfortunately, I didn't get to see that.
Oh, well, you have to get him out there. He would love that. But being with the goats, he's just a good old country boy too.
Right.
We got to run. Thank you for coming.
All right.
Much.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
All the best. Thank you so much, Heather Adolphi. Old goat milk. I've never got the exact title, but
We'll make sure we get it on the website.
she's a good show so far. The Hampton Roads Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce. With you tonight, Dave Scalmero. I'm the director of it. Gary Byler, our chairman, couldn't be here tonight, but we just had two great guests, and Governor George Allen and Heather Adolphi. And not to be overdone, we got another great guest who, unfortunately, I've never met, but I look forward to someday. Gordon Morse. He is one of the editorial writers for the Virginia-Pilot. I read him every week. He's a frequent guest on our mutual friend Tony McCreary's show.
Oh, yeah, Tony. Yeah.
I wanted to get on Tony's show this morning and do a plug, Gordon, for the show tonight. But how are you? Good evening.
Well, I'm fine. I've been playing with this Zoom thing. Do you see San Francisco in the background?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, that wasn't, didn't mean to leave that there, but it's kind of fun to play. I could have been on a South Sea Island. That was one of the other choices. And,
I've been right in that spot, right where where the shot was from.
yeah, I have too. It is spectacular.
It is spectacular.
It really is. It's a wonderful place to visit, and we're out there.
Not sure I want to
last
live
year,
there.
as a matter of fact. But how are you guys doing?
We're good. Did you catch Governor Allen? Did you watch the first part of the show?
No, I was distracted by a couple of phone calls, and I managed to get him off the phone in time to join you all. And so what did he have to say? I'm sorry I didn't hear from him.
Well, he's on that Coronavirus Recovery Commission the Heritage Foundation put together and came up with just a lot of good, basic, common sense things as we go through phase 1. I didn't know there was going to be a phase 4 and 5.
He emphasized that the commission is recommending that we spend just as much energy on livelihoods as lives. We can't forget. We have to make sure everybody's safe, but we also can't forget about protecting the livelihoods.
Let me tell people about Gordon Morse very quickly, and this is what's in the Virginia-Pilot every Sunday. He wrote editorials for the Daily Press and the Pilots in the 80s. He also wrote speeches for past Governor Gerald Balios, who unfortunately just recently passed. And then he spent 3 decades working on corporate and philanthropic organizations. And now you're doing editorials for the Pilot. Gordon, the reason I particularly enjoyed this column from Sunday, June 21st, before reform some protective on the police, and you used a sub-headline or subtitle that said systemic, excuse me. Last time I checked means universal. And we may wish to tap the brakes on that explanation for unrest. I could not have agreed with the whole contents of that more. It was like I was writing it myself. Tell me about it.
Well, you know, I mentioned a couple of fellows that I knew. One some time ago, his name was Ray Saylor, actually, and we met. 1970. So how long ago was that? Long time. And I saw through him and some of his friends what those guys have to go through night after night, the uncertainties involved. It's an unusual occupation. We see these things, you know, sort of play out in these dramas on TV. I mean, how many cop shows have there been? But to see it firsthand is an entirely different thing. And you do develop a sympathy. And I mentioned Ron Watkins, who was a genuine friend, because when you're moving around in the governor's office, it's often you're doing so in company with the state police. And, you know, sometimes I would travel with the governor just to get him somewhere and then go back. And so Ron was with our detail, and he later ran what they call the Executive Protection Unit. He was just absolutely a delightful guy, and he could keep his composure in most any setting when things would get a little complicated or confusing. And I just liked him enormously. And, you know, we lost him to cancer about 4 years ago. So I guess my point of view tends to be born of those experiences with those people and others. These sweeping generalizations we're making and using language like systemic racism, I got a little pushback on that because I just, you know, I thought, well, you know, what is the class, you know, the textbook definition of systemic? And I just popped it up here on the computer, and one of the first words that showed up was universal. Now, some people don't think that that's quite right, but it seems to imply a sort of depth of racism that I'm unconvinced actually exists. But I mean, there's no denying that it does, but I think it's a function of personalities rather than the system.
The institution.
Yeah, you know, I think I think it's very hard when you're a policeman in an institutional setting to not get a sense of it's us and them. All right, because you do form bonds with the people that you work with. You rely on them. When they put out a call that there's a police officer in distress, the response is extraordinary because they recognize that could be them at any given moment. And so they do rally to each other. And there is a sense of camaraderie. I just would be very careful. We're asking these people to do an awful lot. And listen, I've seen them in situations, people forget the diversity of things they're involved in. My in-laws, my mother-in-law, for instance, had a tendency to wander away occasionally. She's fighting dementia. And on 2 occasions, I live in James City County, we called in order to find her, to literally find her. And the police officer's patience and the sensitivity and the care with which he went about that, and you know, it's just random selection. You never know who's going to show up. But it was enormously impressive, the character and quality of these people. I sat on a grand jury some years ago. Judge Powell put me on one, and we're there all day long, going one through case after another as these police officers walk in and present the case for indictment. And, you know, you could see some variety in talent and ability and experience, but nevertheless, these are all serious professionals and they're doing the best they can. And so I guess for all these reasons, I just don't think we ought to generalize.
Well, I imagine you getting some pushback from some, I would like to call them extremists, that, as you just stated, generalize and that all policemen are bad. And anybody with any common sense clearly knows that 99% of them are doing their best to do their jobs, and they're being demonized just with this broad brush, and it's heartbreaking. You know what just happened out in Punga with the first responders to that motorcycle accident, and the firemen and first responders getting kicked.
Fire department people, yeah.
And I think I even heard that they followed him back to the hospital and
Yeah.
were throwing things.
Yeah.
That was shocking.
Yeah, I that kind of amazed me. I don't know what in the world was going on there. Now, you know, it does vary depending on what kind of a neighborhood you're living in. I went over there. Brian Moran, who's the Secretary of Public Safety,
Right.
I had a thing over in Hampton in the convention center part. This was last year, and they did two sessions. They did a public session. They had a private thing earlier with just the local government, and they had the Commonwealth Attorney from Norfolk, I believe, Hampton, a couple of police chiefs. All these guys were African American, and they were describing the situation of how difficult it is to deal with these young people. And we're talking about young people, people barely into their teens who are becoming accustomed to using weapons, handguns. And how profoundly dangerous it is for their police officers to go into these neighborhoods when kids don't think much of pulling a trigger. And you know, their descriptions of what they have to confront convinced me that, look, you know, where I live, it's just nothing much happens. And but in some of these neighborhoods, some things are happening all the time. So in those circumstances, I think the experience with the police officers tend to be somewhat different and confrontational occasionally. But they're doing, again, I agree with you. They're doing the best they can. And it
Well,
is,
you just, what happened, Gordon? Gordon Morse is with us, one of the editorial writers for the Virginia-Pilot, where I'm thrilled to have him with us. Again, you'll hear him on Tony McCreaney's show on WNIS 790 on occasion. The systemic thing bothers me every time I hear it so much, because I think about my mother, and for a part of our lives when we were real poor, we lived in the ghetto. There was only 2 white families in the ghetto, and I was in kindergarten and got beaten up regularly by black kids.
yeah.
And surrounded on my way to and from school, and I'm thinking my mother, even then, there wasn't a racist bone in her body, because that generalization just hurts me.
Yeah, I think we ought to be careful about this, but the phrasing is an unusual systemic racism, and you see it all day long. You see it constantly. You see it in conversations and things on the internet, stuff on the news. It's a little free and loose for my taste.
At the very least. Moving on, I want another thought. Your comment, your editorial from this July 5th. Lawmakers eye an ambitious agenda for August.
That was just last Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, that was last Sunday. I'm scared to death. I wish that they would come, not even go up there, because obviously we're bipartisan, but I'm just afraid that everybody's tensions are so high that rational thought might be at a premium.
I read
But
something.
to cool their jets a little bit. Someone said to me, an attorney over in Hampton is a dear friend, and he said that the speaker, Eileen Phillicorn, she every time she goes to play to the home to bat, she wants to hit the ball out of the park. This is the sort of mentality. They're looking for these big things, big demonstrations of what they offer as an alternative to the other side, and there is this sort of wealth enthusiasm, I suppose, that can trip them up, because some of these issues are large. Like I mentioned, parole. Parole was reformed in 1994 by Governor Allen, and I remember that effort very well. There were a couple of sterling personalities involved. In addition to Bill Barr, Frank Atkinson, who later went on to formed the sort of public arm of McGuire Woods, and Richard Cullen, who former Virginia Attorney General and a highly capable fellow. And then they, it was a substantive effort. You can agree or disagree about a parole, but if you're going to change it now, 26 years later, and that's one of the things that's being floated, you're not going to be able to do that in August. And I asked people about that, how quickly can you do some of these things? And I think there is some recognition that they could bite off more than they could chew in the summer. They may have to extend some of these things out. And
can I ask you a question?
I do get the sense they're going to feel their way along on this.
Did you notice that I heard that there was a proposal to reduce assault on a police officer, emergency responder, from a felony to a misdemeanor? Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, I think that's in there. There are a bunch of things in there.
Kind of shocking,
that,
don't you think?
I think will raise some eyebrows, and they need to be vetted. We don't do lawmaking in August traditionally. In 1986, Governor Biles wanted to isolate out transportation, so we had a special session in September. But we talked about it all the way from winter until September that year, to go through these issues, make sure everybody knew what the choices were. And that's that's what you have to do. Governor Allen did the exact same thing on parole. That was isolated into a special session. You can't take on big things and just do it overnight. And I think they'll figure this out. I think there's some things on that because they're different lists. You've got the Senate Democrats, you've got the House Democrats, and you also have a subset of the House Democrats, which is the Black Legislative Caucus. And so they're all the House itself hasn't quite formed its list. The other two have their lists out, and so we'll see. We'll see.
Are you saying, Gordon? Are you saying the list? You're talking about what their agenda or proposals are they would like to see legislation passed next month?
Do I have it?
No, is that what they're saying? When you say list, you're talking about proposed legislation.
Sure. They had a news conference. Was it last week? I guess I remember. The Senate did one of these things right here on Zoom, and it was kind of interesting because I hadn't seen that done yet, and that more and more of this online stuff is being employed. But essentially, I was able to dial into this thing, and the first thing I thought of was like a whole, screen of little squares, and it was like remember Hollywood Squares, years ago. Everybody would be up there, and what that allowed you to do as they were talking, and Mamie was there, and Louise, and all these other personalities, and you could watch their expressions very carefully as they reacted to other people saying things, which is both instructive and entertaining. All these people have strong personalities, and most of them do, and strong points of view. And
who was Paul Lynn? Who was the Paul Lynn in the group?
That's right. Yeah, Paul Lynn, and some of the others that used to show up on a regular basis. I can't think of all of them, but Paul Lynn always seemed to stick out. A very silly man. But
he was the funniest. Gordon Morse joins us here, ladies and gentlemen. Your Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce. If you're just joining us, we're certainly glad to have him with us. He brings a lot of historical perspective to our conversation, and in his editorials I'd encourage you to read them every Sunday. They're always very insightful. Here in the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce, Gary Byler can't be with us tonight, but we have about another
I hope you will give
5
my
minutes
best to Gary. And
do you know Gary?
Well, Joel Rubin used to do the program on Channel 13, and Gary would show up, and he always had something interesting to say.
That was a great show. He's been on with us once or twice, but he certainly has a lot of historical, political background.
Yes, he does.
Commonwealth.
Yeah, he's been around. He's a veteran.
What do you think's going to happen? Or do you want to even dip your toe into the water on the November elections that are coming up?
Well, take the easy one first. And the congressional races, I don't see a whole lot of change. Rob Whitman is a hoot. I get, and it accelerated in the last few months. I must get an email maybe 2 or 3 times a day from Rob Whitman, telling me something that he thinks I need to know, and all these various activities, particularly on the coronavirus business, and but also on just legislative efforts, one sort or another. He's upped his game. There's no question about it in terms of his aggressiveness to sort of get out, and I think he's very smart to do that, because there's a tendency in Congress to, once you get up there, to sort of lose track of what's going on at home, even though home in Virginia's case is not that far removed. But I've seen people in the past, I can name names, sort of get Potomac fever, and they just sort of
who was the
just sort of lose touch.
minority leader in Virginia? Now his name escapes me.
Well, it happens, but Rob doesn't. I don't see that seat changing. That would be a shock. Vanjie Williams ran, against them last time. That she is still raising money, and I can't figure that one out. I get emails from her for the last 2 years, and then she doesn't even get the nomination, and I'm still getting emails raising money, and so that's peculiar to me. I've thought about doing something with that, but it's a little tricky. Who else?
How
Elaine?
about Scott Taylor, the second? We
Yeah.
have a lot of interest in that race. Obviously, Bobby Scott's seat's pretty safe, but Scott Taylor and Elaine Loya, that should be very interesting.
Yeah, I think with Trump on the ballot, however it goes with Trump, it'll go with Scott. So if it's there for Trump, it may be there for Taylor, but I wouldn't put a whole lot of money on it.
It'll probably be a nail biter.
Dan Gade, who we had him on, I met him at an event. He's a very impressive guy. If you have not met him, obviously he is a long shot to upseat Mark Warner, but Ed Gillespie almost did it 6 years ago.
Well, that was a shockaroozy, and I was sitting right here in this office that night. And I hadn't even thought much about that race, other than, we knew what the conclusion would be. But then you watch these numbers, and, Fairfax County tends to come in late in the evening as they sort of, go along at their own pace. And it was not looking good for Mark until Fairfax dumped all those votes. And it is extraordinary how many votes that one jurisdiction constitutes. Yeah, I mean, Fairfax County, boy, you understand Virginia's political situation when you see that happen. Northern Virginia drives so much. And so he got by. I think it scared him a little bit. I think.
He's been much more aggressive. We got a minute left, Gordon. What's on the agenda for Sunday's paper? Can you give us a little?
I've got to figure that out tomorrow, but I think I'm going to get into higher education. That was the plan. I got privy to plans that William & Mary has. There was a presentation yesterday by one of the deans, and I've had a look at that. So, I mean, they've got to figure this stuff out. And it's whether you're talking about businesses or just like Governor Allen was pointing out, we've got to live. We've got to function. We've got to be safe. We've got to do all these things at the same time. It's not like mutually exclusive. Mm-hmm. And so how these colleges manage this fall, and these students are all coming, it's just around the corner. It's next month. So I'm going to try to write about that and see what I can do with it. And
yeah, I mean, the the fall sports practices, I mean, they're supposed to start training camp around the 1st of August for soccer and football.
There've been some announcements today. I think the Ivy League has pushed it all off, all of their sports until January. And
I know Harvard did, but the whole Ivy League did?
Yeah, I believe so.
Harvard and Yale, I think, and then others.
listen, I think that we don't know exactly how this is going to go. And I think the schools, each campus, everybody, there's no statewide system in Virginia, not like North Carolina. And so everybody's on their own on this to some extent. And
so each county or school system has the autonomy to decide we're going to be in school, or the Virginia education can't dictate to them.
Well, there've been changes. Are you talking about K-12 now? I think. And
okay.
yeah,
K-12, sure.
but yes, there were some changes even today. I didn't look at them. I didn't look at them in detail, so I have to go and check on that. But
oh, you were referring to the colleges, or
yeah, the colleges. A system is that the boards of trustees, or boards of visitors rather, are running the show with the administration, and they're on top of it. Some of them more so than others. Some of them have more resources. I mean, Virginia Tech and UVA have a lot more money. And money is the thing that may save some of these schools. Some of these schools are going to be stretched.
UVA has a big endowment, don't they?
Yeah, they certainly do. We got to run.
All right.
Gordon, we'd like to have you on again, and I'll be in touch with you. Hopefully get you in here live, maybe in October, September, October, when we get toward the meat and the potatoes of the election, because it's a lot more fun when you're in here live and we can shuck and jive.
Oh, sure. Well, listen, thank you for all your kind comments about the column, and I appreciate that. It's always nice to hear. So
it's always a good one. Thanks so much, Gordon Morse.
Thank you, Gordon.
All right.
We'll talk to you again soon.
See ya. Bye-bye.
We got to wrap up here. Dave, exciting, isn't it? Did you figure out that when the yellow highlight, that's when the picture is of us? Because that's what it's.
I wasn't sure if it was audio or video or both, or
like right now it's on us because that yellow, and then when it was on the other, so that they don't have split screens on there. I probably should have told that to you.
Well, I pick up new things. I learn something new from you every minute of every day, JP.
Folks, as we wrap up here, the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce, coastalvachamber.com. If you like what you see, it'll be up with our master tech guy, Max Shapiro, and he's in Richmond, and Kadisha, who helps sets this up here for us. We always want to thank them. Big Steve, who helped us shoot the videos today.
Thank you, Steve.
We thank him very much. We encourage you to join the chamber. It starts for as low as $250, which again, now a new benefit is we come out, set up professional lights and our camera crew, and do a video that's starting 2 weeks from now. We do our Nest Facebook Live. We're going to start showing some of those, kind of like a radio or a television show. And they really
we need your best elevator speech.
They came out well today, didn't they?
I think so.
We'll keep you informed on who we're going to have on in a couple weeks. But we thank you so much for watching. Bless you and God bless America. For Dave Scalamero and JP Gotzi, your director of the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce. Good night.
Good night.